r/AskReddit. What is your I don't get enough paid for this shit moment? I'm a public librarian. I was helping someone in the computer room and turned to tell someone he needed to keep his exclamations at the video he was watching down. Just then, the woman I was helping leapt aside because the man I was shushing pissed himself. It ran down onto the jacket he had tied around his waist, down the chair, onto the ground. Turns out he'd snuck in alcohol and was totally blackout drunk. I told him he had to leave. He put the piss-covered jacket on and stumbled out. As I returned with gloves and cleaning supplies, another patron decided this was a good time to complain about some kids who were making noise. I took a deep breath and said this is a good time for us all to appeal to our higher selves and do our best in the moment. Please just adapt for a minute. Then I thought about the student loans I took out for the master's degree as I scrubbed up piss. Plumber. Owner of a mobile home called and said they had a stinky yard. I could smell it when I pulled up. The mobile home was new and had only been set up for about 8 months. While setting it up, someone didn't tighten the no-hub band of the toilet in the kids' bathroom. 8 months of flushed toilet was all over the ground, under the home, and had just started being noticed outside. I told the homeowner to call the guys that set it up to come fix it. I wasn't crawling under there. I worked at Circuit City when I was 17. Heard a noise of packaging being opened in the movie section. Found a guy crouched down cutting open DVD boxes and stealing the discs. He looked at me, held his knife out, and said, "Got a problem?" I just replied, "I don't get paid enough for this shit," and backed off. I went to the back room of the warehouse area to call a manager to tell them what happened. Never could get a hold of anyone, so I just chilled in the warehouse area for a half hour to decompress. The wise choice. Why get shanked over some fucking megacore DVDs? I was volunteering at a state park. One of the paid park rangers would drive people around to various locations to work, then come check on you throughout the day. Bitch tried to drop me off at the bathrooms and told me to clean them. I was like, "Nope, that's not happening. I'm here to work outside." She told me, "You're gonna do whatever I tell you to do, or I won't sign off on your hours." Then I had to explain that not everyone who volunteered to work was there because they'd been sentenced to community service. Edit. Didn't get an actual apology, but I ended up working on removing some invasive plants that day at a nice spot overlooking a river, instead of cleaning toilets. And worked with different park rangers for the rest of the time I volunteered there. Grocery store cashier. The customer was angry because her cereal had rung up wrong. I called a price check and this lady berated me the whole time. I recall that she accused me of trying to steal from her. Said she was going to get me fired. I looked at her and said, "I make $7.25 per hour, no matter how much you pay for this cereal, so I do not give a shit how this situation turns out." She stared at me in shock. The price check comes back saying the price scanned correctly. Silence. I said, "So do you want the cereal or not?" She said, "Yes." And that was that. She did not complain to the manager. Bagging groceries at a major supermarket. The manager came over to tell me that I needed to clean up the bathroom. An elderly gentleman fell off the toilet while pooping, and it was a literal shit show. Apparently I was the most qualified because I was 16. I was handed a broom and a dustpan. I shit you not, sorry had to. My reward for going above and beyond the call of duty? $5 in store coupons. Sometimes dreams really do come true. First day at the health department, I'm left at the reception desk alone, while literally everyone else in the office went out to a farewell lunch for the person I was replacing. As I was on 90-day probation, wasn't yet licensed and badged, my pay was $7.96/HR. I'm sitting at reception, and some redneck comes in with a leaking garbage bag and drops it on my desk. It contains a newly beheaded javelin head. His buddy had been bitten and it needed to be tested for rabies as soon as possible. I had no fucking clue what to do with a leaking garbage bag of javelin ahead. He couldn't wait for others to return, so he left a number and split. Turns out, we don't do that sort of thing at the health department. Guy refused to come back. I was a manager for a well-known lingerie store. Our location was in a failing suburban mall. The store was giant and shaped oddly. There were dressing rooms in odd hidden corners and a few blind spots. The store was located at the end of the mall next to other stores no one really went to, so there wasn't much foot traffic. We were also always short-staffed because no one wanted to work out there. All of those factors made us a prime location for thieves and weirdos. I would have to do laps around the store due to its layout, and I would regularly come across people doing sex stuff in this one secluded little dressing room. The dressing room was in a sort of alcove and was the least visible spot in the store, so it was prime real estate for all kinds of shenanigans. It ranged from women doing strip teases for men, to catching couples having oral sex, to catching couples having penetrative sex, to catching men masturbating. The final straw was catching a man at closing time, masturbating into a pile of cotton panties with the dressing room door wide open. I couldn't take it anymore. I put in my notice the next day. And what was crazy was that corporate always shrugged or laughed it off when I would call and complain that we needed a security guard. I was 21 at the time, and every woman that worked there was between 19 to 30. It was a safety issue, and they'd also blame us for all the merchandise theft, which we were unable to prevent because there weren't enough bodies in that gigantic store to prevent it. I was also dating a guy who also worked in the mall, and he told me that they finally closed up that one dressing room not long after I left. He said a lot of folks were pissed because apparently that one little dressing room was a well-known open secret spot for hooking up. When I was 20 I had 3 jobs. I worked as a bank teller from 8 to 4, then as a closing shift manager at a coffee shop from 5 to 10, then as an overpass janitor from 11 to AM. This wasn't every day, but it was enough that it equated to about 80 hours a week between the 3 jobs, and yes, you can imagine this would lead to burnout real fast. So at the overpass janitor gig my boss comes over to me and asks me to come to the office for a review. This was weird. All I did was mop floors on a production line that made air train brakes. But whatever. I go into his office, and he closes the door behind me and pulls out a gay porn magazine and starts asking me about different dicks and put his hand on my shoulder. I was surprisingly calm and just said I don't like dicks and went back to work. Then it hit me what happened. I called in sick the rest of the week and picked up my final paycheck when he wasn't there. It was a hard enough job without being sexually harassed for $8.50 an hour. I worked at Walmart for less than a month in 2009. I scanned a big box fan for a guy and it didn't ring up, so I said I gotta do a price check on this, I apologize. The guy said it's $24.99, you fucking idiot. I stared at him for a moment, then reached up and turned my little register light off, turned around, walked out to my car, and went home. Fuck that shit. I hope he stood there for ages waiting for you to come back. Some say he's still waiting.